In October 1962, the world stood at the precipice of nuclear annihilation as the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a high-stakes standoff. This 13-day confrontation remains the most dangerous moment in the history of the Cold War. Following the 1959 Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro aligned his nation with the Soviet Union, fundamentally altering the political landscape of the Western Hemisphere. This ideological shift prompted the U.S. to view the island as a direct security threat. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the primary antagonists, led by President John F. Kennedy and Premier Nikita Khrushchev, respectively. These two leaders held the fate of the global population in their hands during this crisis. Geographically, Cuba sits just 90 miles from Florida, providing a strategic launch platform for Soviet missiles. This proximity allowed Soviet weapons to strike the majority of the continental United States with very little warning time for defensive systems. The spark occurred on October 14, 1962, when a U-2 spy plane captured photographic evidence of Soviet SS for medium-range ballistic missile sites under construction in Cuba. This discovery forced the Kennedy administration into an emergency series of meetings. The U.S. responded with a naval quarantine on October 22, 1962, a strategic maneuver designed to prevent Soviet ships from delivering additional nuclear components to the island. This avoided the legal definition of a formal act of war. The Caribbean Sea became the primary theater of operations, with the U.S. Navy enforcing a blockade that effectively isolated the island nation from Soviet supply lines. This zone remained the focal point of global military tension for weeks. The Soviet Union utilized SS for medium-range ballistic missiles and FKR-1 Meteor cruise missiles, aiming to achieve strategic parity with the American nuclear arsenal. These weapons represented a significant escalation in the regional nuclear capabilities of the Soviet Union. On October 27, 1962, known as Black Saturday, tensions peaked when a U-2 pilot, Rudolf Anderson, was shot down over Cuba. The same day, the USS Beale dropped signaling depth charges on a Soviet Foxtrot-class submarine nearby. Ordinary citizens across the globe lived in constant fear, participating in civil defense drills as the threat of a full-scale nuclear exchange became a terrifying reality for millions. Panic led to widespread stockpiling and fallout shelter construction efforts. International reactions were polarized, with NATO allies supporting the American position while the Warsaw Pact nations stood firmly behind Soviet defensive claims. This division highlighted the rigid bipolar nature of the Cold War global order during the period. A tense stalemate persisted until secret diplomatic channels were opened, allowing both superpowers to negotiate a path away from the brink of total destruction. These back-channel communications proved essential in preventing an accidental escalation of the ongoing military standoff. The endgame arrived on October 28, 1962, when Khrushchev announced the dismantling and removal of Soviet missiles from Cuba, ending the immediate threat of war. This concession was a major victory for Kennedy's policy of measured, firm pressure. A secret quid pro quo agreement was reached, involving the eventual removal of obsolete U.S. Jupiter missiles from Turkey in exchange for the Soviet withdrawal from Cuba. This compromise was kept hidden from the public for many years. Casualties included one American pilot and several Soviet sailors who perished due to extreme heat and exhaustion within their submarines during the intense naval standoff. These losses underscored the brutal conditions faced by personnel on both sides. The global power balance shifted, leading to the establishment of a direct hotline between the White House and the Kremlin to prevent future miscommunications. This technical improvement became a cornerstone of Cold War crisis management and stability. This crisis remains a definitive case study in brinkmanship, demonstrating the catastrophic risks of nuclear proliferation and the absolute necessity of direct diplomatic communication between rival superpowers. It fundamentally changed how world leaders approached nuclear strategy and deterrence. The deployment of 40,000 Soviet troops to Cuba highlighted the extent of Soviet commitment to maintaining a foothold in the Western Hemisphere during the height of the Cold War. This troop presence was a major intelligence concern for Washington. The presence of tactical nuclear weapons on the island posed an immediate, existential threat to major American cities, forcing the Kennedy administration to consider all military options. This included the potential for a full-scale invasion of the island nation. Soviet submarine commanders faced immense pressure, with Vasily Arkhipov famously refusing to authorize the launch of a nuclear torpedo despite being under intense provocation from U.S. naval forces. His individual judgment likely prevented a global nuclear catastrophe. The crisis underscored the complex influence of Fidel Castro on Soviet decision-making, as he urged Khrushchev to consider a preemptive strike against the United States. This radical stance complicated the delicate negotiations between the two nuclear-armed superpowers. Ultimately, the Cuban Missile Crisis serves as a sobering reminder that even in an era of technological advancement, the survival of humanity depends on the rational decisions of leaders during moments of extreme geopolitical instability and dangerous, escalating conflict.